Hello everybody, this is the Aussie Arrow Hand. Today I'll be looking at the Glossary of Buddhism. So I will navigate to the page. And if we scroll down to the A section, we see the word Abhidhamma. One thing I wanted to check here is if we click on 0 to 9, no, there's nothing there. It's all listed on this page. But there are going to be some words in here, some concepts that start with a number. I'm wondering if I type in the number 9, for example, whether I will find something beginning with 9. If I type in the word 5, and I'm thinking about the 5 hindrances here. So what do we got here? 5 500-year periods. 5 subdivisions of the 3 periods following the Buddha's passing. That's interesting. So the 5 precepts is up here in the sidebar. Are the 5 hindrances in here at all? Yes, they are, but they're in the glossary at the bottom of the page, which is interesting. So the page for the Glossary of Buddhism has a glossary at the bottom of the page. This in its own right is useful, and I like the way it's divided here. You got the foundations, you got the Buddha, bodhisattvas, disciples, key concepts, cosmology, branches, practices, nirvana, monasticism, and major figures, texts, countries and regions, history, philosophy, culture, miscellaneous comparison and lists. Okay. So, not only do you have this sort of table set up here, you have sidebars, you have the glossary at the bottom of the page. What do we see if we click on outline? That will take me to outline of Buddhism. And I think this is all worth exploring as well. But what I want to stick to here is the Abhidhamma. Now I want to make sure that I'm pronouncing that right. So I'm going to look it up here. And I will find a site such as howtopronounce.com.
Abhidhamma. Abhidhamma.
Abhidhamma.
Abhidhamma.
Alright, so Abhidhamma will do. I will close that one and we'll go back to the jargon on the glossary page. Abhidhamma, a category of scriptures that attempts to use Buddhist teachings to create a systematic, abstract description of all worldly phenomena. Etymology. Abhi is above or about. Dhamma is teaching. So if we combine those together, above teaching, about teaching, this word above interests me. As in, perhaps it's some kind of view from above, or some sort of meta-analysis. I don't know. But also, you've got to be wary with some of these etymologies. Also, yeah, so there is that famous saying, every translation is a mistranslation, but about teaching, above teaching, Abhidhamma. All right, so let's go to the Wikipedia page. Theravāda Abhidhamma. The Theravāda Abhidhamma tradition, also known as the Abhidhamma method, refers to a scholastic systemization of the Theravāda school's understanding of the highest Buddhist teachings, Abhidhamma. These teachings are traditionally believed to have been taught by the Buddha, though modern scholars date the texts of the Abhidhamma Pitaka to the 3rd century BCE. Theravāda traditionally sees itself as the Vibhajavada, the teaching of analysis, which reflects the analytical Vibhajati method used by the Buddha and early Buddhists to investigate the nature of the person and other phenomena. So there's quite a lot there in that first paragraph. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up Notepad, and I will put that on one side of the screen, and that one has fit itself over to the right. Alright, so I'm just going to copy and paste some things. This here, scholastic systemization. So what we're talking about here is texts and how texts are organized and preserved. But I guess this word systemization here, I want to know what that means exactly in this context. So I will read on. So it is of the Theravāda school's understanding of the highest Buddhist teachings. Now, it should be understood that Theravāda is the oldest school of Buddhism. I think it means wisdom of the elders or teaching of the elders or something. I will look that one up. But it is the oldest school of Buddhism, and it is the one that's intended to have the most fidelity with what the Buddha actually taught. So, yeah, we're talking about the highest Buddhist teachings. These are taught by the Buddha. Modern scholars date the texts to the 3rd century BCE. So then we talk about this analytical method used by the Buddha and early Buddhists to investigate the nature of the person and other phenomena. What's this word? Vibhajati. Let's have a look at that one. Vibhajavada. Let's have a look at this. Is a term applied generally to groups of early Buddhists belonging to the Stavira Nikaya, which split from the Mahasamhika. Okay, I don't think this is what we're looking for. If I go to the Sutta Central results, divides, dissects, classifies. Okay, so we got some Pali English, so I guess translations from Pali. These would be, what do they call them, transliterations. All right, to distribute, divide, to distinguish, dissect, divide up, classify. All right, so dissect, analyze in detail, explain at length. All right, so this here, we're talking about an analytical method. Now, what is that method? how do we describe it? Well, from what I understand of the Buddha, he had a very strongly investigative method of understanding the world. And I was quite surprised reading some works by Theravādan scholars. I think Rahula Rapola, is that how you pronounce his name? There's this book, What the Buddha Taught. What the Buddha Taught by Walpola Rahula Thera. So this is a brilliant book, and what it left me with was this understanding of the Buddha as someone who was trying to understand the world, a little bit like a scientist. I found a strong sort of parallel between him and Aristotle, of all people, reading this book. I felt he was quite meticulous in trying to sort of cut up and divide and classify and understand the world and sort of figure things out and sort of transmit knowledge to other people. So, but that was my impression. That's not necessarily how he was. And I know that there's a lot of other schools who look at other bits from the scriptures, from the sutras, and it gives a very wide-ranging picture of him when you look at them all. That this one, it's a really good book. But when we're looking at this analytical method, and if I'm thinking of, and I come back to this list often, the 5 hindrances. So not that one, sorry. The 7 factors of awakening. Okay, so that's the AI. I'll go to the Wikipedia page for that one. We've got mindfulness. So these are the 7 factors of awakening. I think this is part of right effort. Sort of if you go through the spokes of the wheel of the Eightfold Path, one of them is right effort. And the sort of deal with right effort is to move yourself from a wholesome, to move yourself from an unwholesome state to a wholesome one. And here, this is one way to do it, this list. And Buddhism has a lot of lists. This is just one of them. The 7 factors of awakening are mindfulness, investigation, energy, joy, relaxation, concentration, equanimity. So the one I'm interested in here when we're talking about this analytical method used by the Buddha, investigation of the nature of reality. Now, I think most Buddhist traditions do this through meditation, but some of them do it through, how shall we put it? Some of them do it through scholastic pursuits, and you'll find there's a lot of scholarly stuff with Buddhism, a lot of stuff that's been written down and preserved, and you've got these canons of literature. The Pali Canon is very important to the Theravāda tradition. So if we're looking at this here, I guess one of my questions here is about the analytical method. And I want to know, because I have this idea of the Buddha as someone who really asked questions of the world, who did not take received opinion, did not take other people's authority. He wanted to experience things himself and to know things firsthand. And in that way, I consider him a kind of, I don't know, an OG skeptic in the modern sense. When you think of these sort of atheistic figures who, spend a lot of time debunking things. I don't know if the Buddha was like that, but yeah, I find him utterly fascinating. And the way he was represented in this book, What the Buddha Taught by Walpola Rahula, was something like that. A very strong sense of psychology, understanding our own psychology, liberating ourselves from mental shackles. This is really great stuff. It resonated strongly with me when I read it. But with Theravāda, it's not just about the practice, it's also about the preservation of all of these. So we're going back here, we're looking at the Glossary of Buddhism, the Abhidhamma. So I'll open this up again. So okay, so this entire thing seems to have to do with all of the texts, all of the writings that talk about what the Buddha believed. Alright, so there's a little bit more of a wider context here I want to look at. And I think if I go here, we got the Abhidhamma, and then we got the Abhidhamma Pitaka. And then it's described as the third basket of the Tripitaka Canon, the reorganization of all doctrines in a systematic way. Is that different from the Abhidhamma? I'm not sure. So let's go to the Tripitaka. We'll go up to the Buddhist canons. And there's a bunch of them. Okay, so Tripitaka, Pali Tripitaka. Yeah, this is the one I'm looking at. This is the Pali Canon. The Pali Canon is very important to the Theravāda Buddhist tradition. It's used by others, I'm sure, but it's the standard collection of scriptures in the Theravāda Buddhist tradition as preserved in the Pali language. Right. And we got this thing called a Tripitaka, but here it's called the Tipitaka. So let's have a look here. The three baskets, right? The structure of books considered canonical within the Pali Tipitaka. The Theravāda school generally only recognises the Pali Tipitaka and rejects the authenticity of other Tipitaka versions. So, yeah, that there is probably a reason why there's so many different schools of Buddhism. They're all reading different texts. But yeah, here we go. The Abhidhamma Pitaka is over here. I can't read that. I don't know what they are, but what's this? The Vinaya Yapataka, the Vinaya Yapataka, the Sutta Pitaka, and so there's three baskets within this sort of scholarly collection of texts. So we've got the Abhidhamma, and it concerns what the Buddha taught, all of, I guess, the doctrine, you might call it that. So what is the Sutta Pitaka and the Vinaya Yapataka? Let's have a look. I'll just close some tabs. We go to our Buddhist canons, back to the Tipitaka. And There we go. The Pali Canon falls into three general categories called Pitaka, from Pitaka meaning basket, referring to receptacles in which palm leaf manuscripts were kept. Okay, that's interesting. So there were literal palm leaf manuscripts inside baskets. There's three baskets within the Tipitaka. You got the Vinaya Pitaka, the discipline basket, dealing with the rules or discipline of the Sangha. Okay, so the Sangha is the community. I think it might be the wider Buddhist community, but also association. Just, it might be the temple that you live in. It might be every Buddhist across the world. Let's have a look at that page. I just want to have a check of that. So let's have a look. So I've got Sangha, a term meaning association, assembly, company, or community. In a political context, it was used to denote a governing assembly in a republic or kingdom. But yeah, in Buddhism, Sangha refers to monastic communities of monks and nuns. So there you go. We go to here. So that's, yeah, the Vinaya Pitaka is about how to live in a Sangha. How to live in a Sangha. How to, I guess, the rules and conduct of living in the Sangha. And things that are important to that. Then we got the Sutta Pitaka, the Sutra Sayings basket, discourses and sermons of Buddha, some religious poetry, the largest basket. So there we go. We got discourses and sermons of Buddha. So that's what I thought the Abhidhamma was, based on how I've read about it so far. So yeah, let's read. What does it say about the Abhidhamma Pitaka? These are treatises that elaborate Buddhist doctrines, particularly about mind, also called the systematic philosophy basket. Okay, I guess you could describe this as similar to tertiary literature. I guess these are people interpreting the Buddha and sort of drafting up sort of doctrines and lists and sort of, yeah. So if I go back to this page here, Theravāda, yeah, it reflects, okay, so there's these teachings are traditionally believed to have been taught by the Buddha. Okay, that doesn't mean the stuff here was written by the Buddha. Yeah, okay, so yeah, so the Abhidhamma, or the Abhidhamma Pitaka, is the third basket of the Pali Canon. It's the third basket, and it's to do with treatises that elaborate Buddhist doctrines, particularly about mind. So we'll go up here. I'm going to copy this here. We'll go here. So 3 Pitakas. So that's the wider, broader context, I guess. Yeah, all right. So we've got this here. Okay, we've talked a lot about how they organise their writings. How they organise their writings. But what do the writings actually say? I'm going to look for a summary. We'll go over to the Abhidhamma again. What have we got here? Dhamma theory, analysis of mind, space and time. So I might just have a little bit of a look through these, but I think, yeah. Where are we? Dhamma theory. In the Pali Nicaeus, the Buddha teaches through a method in which experience is explained using various conceptual groupings of physical and mental processes, which are called Dhamma. Examples of lists of Dhamma taught by the Buddha in the Nikayas include the 12 sense spheres, Ayatana, the 5 aggregates, Kanda, and the 18 elements of cognition, Dhatu. Alright, so yeah, I guess we could go deep into this. I'm going to go further into this in later videos where I may be actually reading some of these texts and trying to get to grips with them. But this is the Abhidhamma here. Yeah, alright. So if we go back here, we talk about the Abhidhamma. It's a category of scriptures that attempts to use Buddhist teachings to create a systematic, abstract description of all worldly phenomena. Right. This Abhidhamma here, Abhidhamma Pitaka, it's the third basket of the Tripitaka Canon, the reorganisation of all doctrines in a systematic way. So, yeah, if we look at this one, go here, where is it? Sangha, I think I've lost it now. This here, the Pali Canon, 3 general categories. They're all Pitaka. But, yeah, I don't know if that's different from that. It seems to be the same. I don't know if those entries could be combined. If I were to click on this page here where it says the Pitaka, it just takes you to the same page that that one links to. So, that's interesting. Yeah, alright. So, let's maybe flesh this out a little bit more. According to Bhikkhu Bodhi, a modern Theravāda scholar, the Abhidhamma is simultaneously a philosophy, a psychology, and an ethics, all integrated into the framework of a program for liberation. So that's Bhikkhu Bodhi there. He was born Jeffrey Block. He is an American Theravāda Buddhist monk. There are different textual layers of the Abhidhamma literature. The earliest Abhidhamma works are found in the Pali Canon. Then there are exegetical works which were composed in Sri Lanka in the 5th century. There are also later sub-commentarial works composed in later historical periods. What is exegesis again? So I need to know that term. The critical explanation, interpretation, and drawing out of meaning from a text. So, is that the same as hermeneutics? I'm not sure. Exegetical. It's probably hermeneutics used more in a religious context. So, yeah. Okay. So, we've gone very briefly into the Abhidhamma. I'm just going to Google it, see what comes up. Okay, so you got the AI overview, abhidhamma.org. Okay, so let's have a look. It has a whole website. Abhidhamma. Discover the ancient wisdom of Abhidhamma, the Buddha's detailed analysis of mind and matter. There's a PDF version. Core teachings. Alright, so there's 4 of them here. Well, 4 listed. Abhidhamma texts. So, yeah, these are all written by Nina van Gorkom. These might be worth looking at. But, yeah, so this site here, abhidhamma.org. We go to the PDF version. I'm going to see if I can get something up here. Conditional relations, points of controversy. There's a lot here. I'm going to go through this in my spare time. But let's just have a look at the core teachings. The Abhidhamma presents a detailed map of the mind and its functions, offering profound insights into the nature of experience and the path to liberation. Citta, consciousness. The element that is chief in knowing or experiencing an object. Okay, so what you'll find studying Buddhism is there's a very strong psychology or theory of mind, uh, cetasika, mental factors. The 52 cetasikas are mental factors that accompany citta, consciousness, including seven universals present in every citta, 6 occasionals, 14 unwholesome, 19 beautiful, and 6 that accompany only wholesome or beautiful cittas, each contributing to the quality and function of consciousness. Okay? Uh, Rupa, matter. Rupa refers to physical phenomena that do not experience anything and arise dependent on conditions. These include temperature, nutrition, kama, consciousness. All right, so look, there's this very complicated theory here. And then we've got dependent origination and pathana. These explain the arising of suffering through a chain of 12 linked conditions. Okay, I will go into that at some point. But yeah, okay, so in summary, I think if we go back to, let's find it, the Pali Canon, this is sort of probably the best way to explain it at this point. Okay, so the Abhidhamma, or the Abhidhamma Pitaka, it is the third basket. It is the third basket of the Pali Canon. Remembering that baskets were actually physical objects here, which they put the manuscripts into. So you've got this list again, just to illustrate 3 baskets. 1, to do with the sort of teachings of the Sangha. 2, to sort of do with the discourses and maybe some of the literature. I think there was poetry in there as well. That was the second basket. And the third was this amazing, complex sort of theory of the universe and reality that the Buddha offered. So we go back here. Yep. So Vinaya Pitaka, discipline basket, dealing with the rules or discipline of the Sangha. Sutta Pitaka, discourses and sermons of the Buddha, some religious poetry, the largest basket. Abhidhamma Pitaka, so the Abhidhamma, treatises that elaborate Buddhist doctrines, particularly about mind, and we saw that with a little bit of what was on abhidhamma.org, also called the systematic philosophy basket.